How do you become the king of an empire of over 400 players? How do you join a public server and rule over it? From nothing to a crown at the head of the biggest empire this server has seen, today's protagonist has done it all. From building his own country to empire, winning over his people, creating strong alliances and almost losing everything to a war. The story I will tell you in this video is one you do not want to miss. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you the tale of Everwood. Today's story starts right here. This player is Cameron 10. He just logged in for the first time, and just like any other new player, his first day was pretty simple. Chopping his first tree, getting resources and building a starter base, you know all of that. Soon enough, he decided to go to the server bank to sell some resources and start making some money. But on his way he would stumble upon another relatively new player called Wildcard0GG. We will call him Lynx for the rest of the video. Cam and Lynx would quickly become good friends, and Lynx would invite him to join his group. Cam, with nothing else to do and extremely poor at the time, decided to join forces with him. Lynx would give him some cords, and Cam would soon travel the map to make his way to the location he was given. There he would meet again Lynx and a player called Flash. The three of them would quickly bond together and get really motivated on getting things done and creating a village. Together they will start working on a base and getting resources to sell them at the server bank for money. One day while they were on their way to sell resources, they met a player called a Cookie Kid that they will invite to join them. From there, it's where the real adventure would start. The four of them would get really hard at work on resource gathering and planning. The four of them had one dream: to create a great village to live in. But one night, while they were all offline, their base would get raided, pillaged, and destroyed. They were devastated. Everything they worked so hard for was just gone like this. All their efforts were for nothing. But Lynx was not gonna let them give up that easily. He stood up and explained to all of them how this place was not optimal and surrounded by other territories anyways. He would convince everyone to keep their hopes up and move all together to a new location. A couple days later, on June 5th, the four of them gathered all their stuff and started walking across the map searching for a new place to settle. They ended up by stumbling across that little island in the southeast of the map, where they found an abandoned base built by a nomad. Lynx and the others were convinced by this place and decided to settle their camp there. First, they decided to build an enchanting station to be sure they would be well geared next time they would get attacked by raiders. Then started building a bunch of houses for all of them. Even some new players started to join at this time, and their little group grew to around 10 players. But they were still missing something: a name for this place. After brainstorming for a little, Cam came up with the name Everwood. Everyone seemed to like it, so Everwood it was. Also, they held a little flag contest to choose the flag of the new Everwood. This is what Cam proposed at the time, but the flag that would convince everyone is this one by GP Miner. Everyone liked it, and it would instantly become the official flag. The first days were pretty exciting, between building the place, gathering resources together, making new friends, and the city was starting to come together, building the first walls that would serve to close up the city and keep everyone safe inside. But there was one thing they didn't account for. What if the danger was already inside those walls? No one expected it, but one of the core members of Everwood was about to betray the town. From what I understood, a Cookie Kid tried in secret to steal the gold and iron from the Everwood treasury to finance his own town that he wanted to create. He got caught red-handed doing it by Cam and GP Miner, who confronted him about it and had to kill him in order to get back the stolen resources. After that, Cookie Kid was banished from the land and erased from the history books. It wasn't a major issue, but Lynx, Cam and Flash were really disappointed to see Cookie Kid leave like that. But this couldn't stop them from growing Everwood. It was around that time that Lynx announced to everyone that he was taking a break from the server, and Flash had to leave as well for personal reasons. Cam was temporarily put in charge of Everwood and had to run the town on his own, but this was not a challenge he was scared of. Cam was determined. He believed in Everwood and wanted to make Lynx proud. As soon as Lynx left, he started working on expanding the town. More builds were made. People were getting recruited. Everwood was getting richer and richer. The town grew from 10 to 30 members in only a week. But a problem would soon emerge. The town getting authority in the area would soon attract raiders and bandits that would constantly attack Everwood and kill their members. Everwood, being pretty new, didn't develop an army yet and couldn't protect themselves from those constant raids. So they tried their best to defend their land as much as they could and just hid when the raiders were there until they were able to develop a better solution. Meanwhile, Cam would get news that Lynx wasn't planning on coming back to the server, but he would log in one last time, to crown him king of Everwood. Cam wouldn't lose time and started leading his people like a true king. He expanded the town even more and even created two lands that would become colonies of Everwood, Mistress in the east and Hillsborough in the west. But the raid problem wouldn't stop yet. So to remedy to this issue, Cam decided to join a regional coalition, the Southwest Coalition, with a couple other lands, Azurin, Covert of the Eclipse, South Peak, and Redmane. The 5 members of the coalition would all join forces to defend themselves from raiders and assist each other in case of attacks. A couple days after joining the Southwest Coalition, Everwood would get raided again, but this time one of their new allies was ready. Covert of the Eclipse would send their forces, called the Knights of the Black Rose, to defend Everwood from the attackers. It will go pretty well for them, and they will successfully fight off the raiders. On this day, Cam would meet a player called Rainbow Tilly, who was one of the knights sent to help them. They would become good friends really fast, and Tilly would start coming back to Everwood multiple times to hang out with Cam. But apart from making friends and fighting off raiders, our new king was determined more than ever to make Everwood the greatest and strongest land in the southwest of Atlas. Cam would also soon start to hang out even more with his new friend Tilly, and slowly started to realize that she was maybe more than just a friend. But he was too busy to figure this out now. Everwood just got a war threat from Covert of the Eclipse, the same land that was helping them out defend themselves from the raids. The old leader of Covert had retired and passed down the crown to a player called Chaotic Crafter, who is Tilly's brother, and wasn't a big fan of Cam or Everwood since he realized that they were trying to expand and become the most powerful land in the area. Cam and his council would just decide to ignore the threats and say they would defend themselves if anything happened, and left it for now. By the way, if you're enjoying this story and want to participate in stories like this one, all of that is a real story that happened on my public server. If you want to join it, the IP is on screen and in the description. Anyways, let's get back to it. A couple weeks would pass where Everwood would continue growing and improving. Also, Tilly would end up by moving to Everwood, and for good reasons. Cam was about to ask her to marry him, and she said yes. The both of them would start organizing a wedding and invited all of the Everwood citizens, friends and allies. Even I got invited. The wedding would start well, everyone was having a good time, but Tilly's brother, who was there, would stand up and publicly oppose himself to the marriage. Also, a wizard was there, a bunch of people died, Tilly ran away, I got drunk with Lynx. Anyway, they still ended up by getting married in the end somehow and even moved in together in the Everwood mansion. Some days later, Everwood would do the final bit of works to officially become a nation, under the name of the United Republic of Everwood, URE for short. Now, they were a nation. Other lands were able to join them officially and become part of Everwood. You can kinda see it as a kingdom, with Everwood as the capital. This is when their colonies, Hillsborough, Mistress, and even another land called Redmane, that was part of the Southwest Coalition, would officially join the URE. To celebrate the rise of the new kingdom, a massive tower was built in Everwood, the new capital of the URE. The URE was still pretty new, and Cam still had a lot to do to be at the same level as the other nations. Everything from the organization to the regime they should adopt was still to be determined, but Tilly would insist to Cam for a monarchy to be instaured, and this is what they would end up by doing, with Cam as the king. But for some reason, he wouldn't yet name Tilly as the queen. The URE also still didn't have any major allies outside of their own members, So stronger nations like Ragnarok would start to pick on them and attack them because they were weaker, and they were starting to gain control of the area. In retaliation, Cam would invite a group of lands called Fellowship and other lands that had Ragnarok as their common enemies to the URE to grow their troops and ability to fight back. The leader of Ragnarok, not pleased with what the URE was doing, would soon officially declare war to the URE. When Cam would get the news, he was pretty demoralized. He knew that Ragnarok, being the second strongest nation, was way more developed than them, and if they were to battle, it wouldn't go that well. In desperation, Cam tried to reach out to the leader of Gumperium, the strongest nation on the server, who also had a little grudge against Ragnarok. Their leader, Fish, would reject the offer to join the battle, judging it was too much of a risk to take for his nation. Cam was desperate. Everything he had worked so hard for until now was about to get destroyed. All the houses were gonna get burned, and his people would lose their trust in him. What happened to him back at his first base was gonna happen again, and the days of the URE were numbered. Until Cam would receive a message from the leader of a land called the Stones, who are part of Ragnarok and their main PvP force, telling Cam that for a payment they were ready to betray their own nation and help the URE in the war. That was a game changer. The table had turned. Cam accepted the deal and knew that with the Stones on their side, Rag had no chance. He was motivated again. He got all the members of the URE ready for war. Stones or not, they were gonna win. But at the height of all tension, the leader of Rag would learn about the Stones' betrayal and understand that without them, they were not ensured to win this war anymore. So they communicated with Cam and proposed to cancel the war. Cam was kind of disappointed that it wasn't happening anymore. I was also disappointed, to be honest. I wanted to see the war. But he came to his senses and decided to accept to give up on this conflict, as it was the best choice for his people. Cam realized that the URE was way too near the edge on this conflict, and that their lack of allies could end them next time something like that would happen. So the URE decided to open themselves more to the world, and became allies with a bunch of nations, like Nira, Gump, and Ragnarok somehow. Even some of their longtime enemies, like the two lands Deathcore and Rivercore, were invited to join the URE to finally unify all the lands of the Southwest under one flag. A couple months would pass where the URE kept on expanding and was now a pretty stable nation, with allies, multiple people dedicated to the empire and doing their best to keep it expanding and keep it going. Cam was now getting more busy by the day to try to figure out how to prevent conflicts, make more money and expand the URE. Due to all of that, he was spending less and less time with Tilly, to the point that they almost did nothing together. But on the bright side, the URE now had a bank, a library, and was working with other big nations like Gump and Nida against Ragnarok. They got more members, a bit over 400 to be exact, and became the most popular nation on the server. As good as it was looking for the URE, Cam's dedication started to have repercussion on his relationship with Tilly, not even mentioning that Cam still did not name her queen. But Tilly was really near higher-ups of another nation called Terra Sancta, allies of the URE and one of the main nations that was providing them with trades and enchants for their gear. Terra Sancta has been pressuring Cam for a while to name Tilly queen, but they now judged it was way too long and gave him a deadline before they would cut all trades with the URE if Tilly was not named queen. Cam had no choices and tried his best. He got a one-of-a-kind item from a player called Nick C that he won in an event called the Crown of Love. Cam would prepare a coronation and invite everyone from the URE and would name Tilly officially the queen of the URE. But apart from that, the both of them wouldn't really hang out more, and Cam would keep up the grind and deal with the URE and not spend time with Tilly. During that time, Tilly would meet a friend of mine called Sor, who plays on the server, and they would become friends. And bro decided to take her to a place called Riz Island, where he stayed with her for like 4 hours with 7 wingmen. Don't ask me what he was doing. I don't want to talk about it. The both of them would spend a lot of time together, and Cam would learn about that, but ignore it and wasn't really worried about it. A week or two would pass, and Cam was starting to get more and more work to deal with, but Tilly was getting really affected by that. They were practically not spending any time together anymore. And by now, Tilly and Sor were really good friends, but Sor didn't really see it this way, and told her that she had to choose between him and Cam. Tilly was slowly starting to lose her mind over the situation. Her husband Cam took multiple months to name her queen after their wedding, and has ignored her for the rest of the time, and now her new friend is asking her to choose between the both of them. One evening, Tilly would ask Cam if they could talk, so they went to the top of the tower in Everwood to have a conversation. After a long talk, things didn't seem like they were gonna change. Tilly looked at Cam, and then
I've got fantasies that
Cam, overworked by his position of leader, decided to retire and pass down his position to the URE higher-ups, who without Cam were overwhelmed by the amount of work and decided to sell the nation to a rich buyer. A couple days later, the URE would be renamed to Core, and Cam would send one video to all the members of the URE.
They can take a lot of stuff from us, but you know, if it's one thing they can't really take, it's, you know, the spirit of the Republic, you know. And I've been playing the same server for about half a year now, and I think it's time for me to maybe do something else. I've been doing the same thing. I think it's time to move on. So, glory to the URE, whatever. Love you guys.
To the people of Everwood, I genuinely had some of the funnest and funniest time on the server with you guys. Thank you for that. Long live the URE. It was Ray. See you next time.